Hello, I'm Kurt Gardinier, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and the documentary on white privilege we hope to create. I've worked in this line of work, directing and producing for about 20 years. I've worked at networks like CNN, MSNBC, C-SPAN, NPR, and a bunch of production companies. I've worked with a big, diverse group of hosts like Rachel Maddow, Wolf Blitzer, Joe Scarborough, Tom Hartman, Mike Gallagher, and of course, the broadcasting legend Qvortrup. And I've worked on projects with actors Rob Lowe and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Are you excited to work with the hosts of this new project?
So yeah, I'm looking forward to working with the hosts of the documentary, which we're calling The Redneck and the Professor, Understanding White Privilege, which we hope will turn into a series covering a broad range of issues. The two hosts are Dane Waters. He's a veteran political strategist from Alabama. He's an author. And then Matt Qvortrup is an Oxford-educated man from London who's a political science professor at Coventry University in London. With your help and support, we hope to start shooting the documentary in the summer, and the series would follow after that. Thank you. Hello and welcome. If you're watching this video, we thank you for considering to help fund our project. Joining me is the Redneck, Dane Waters, and the Professor, Matt Qvortrup. Dane, let's start with you. You came to me with an idea for a TV series hosted by yourself and Matt, which we've been developing over the past 6 months or so, which led us to create this documentary that we're trying to fund, The Redneck and the Professor, Understanding Our White Privilege. Talk about the documentary, what the focus of it will be, and who will we speak with?
Listen, I think even though I'm a redneck from Alabama, grew up in Bessemer, Alabama, there are a lot of things I just can't even wrap my head around. And every day I was reading stories about how this is considered racism, or this is because of white privilege, and this is because the so-called cancel culture. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So I even started, one thing good about it is it caused me to question my understanding of these issues. What do they actually mean? And so, and because I've worked around the world, I see this from different perspectives. But I thought, hey, what would be great is to create a TV show / documentary where we look at these issues that are impacting the entire world, both from the viewpoint of a simple redneck from Alabama, and then through the lens of a very learned individual who I have great respect for, Professor Qvortrup, and look at both sides of this from both sides of the Atlantic. And also, the COVID is making this a little difficult, but we wanted to throw a little bit of an Anthony Bourdain splash in there. One thing that Anthony Bourdain did amazingly is that he brought people in, personalized it. And it wasn't just about two talking heads. It was about, hey, listen, let's have this conversation with everyday people, hear what they have to say. And it wasn't just an intellectual journey. He did that through food. He did that through experiences. And that's what I want us to do as well with this show, is that not just make it about my own individual journey or Matt's individual journey. It's also about the viewer individual journey. And we want to infuse it with culture, travel, and all the things that really make it so that people can relate to it personally and not just view this as two talking heads out there, once again, talking about something that they really have no idea what they're talking about.
So Matt, let's bring you in. What will your role be as a co-host based in London, and what areas of white privilege will you explore in the UK?
Yes, so I'm sort of the antithesis of what Dane is. I'm an Oxford-educated academic. It's very interesting that Britain is a country where we have roughly 15% of the population are of ethnic minority background, predominantly Black British. Yet it was not until 2000 that we had the first cabinet minister who was Black. What I bring to this is a perspective not from Alabama, but from Oxford and the environs, really. From Westminster, the perspective that I suppose has been publicized widely with the plight of Meghan Markle, or the Duchess of Sussex, as she's known here. So that, I suppose that is my perspective, but my perspective is also, if you like, to take sort of the long view, if the philosophical view, for want of a better word, because one of the things that's very interesting when you read, the history books and the philosophy books, is that racism is a relatively new phenomenon. It is what people in my world would call a social construct. When we read the books of John Locke, who was one of the people who inspired the American Constitution, he wrote around 1700 that nobody in their right mind would discriminate people on the basis of the color of their skin. You could do that on the basis of religion, but you wouldn't do that. So in some ways, racism is a relatively new phenomenon, which I, as an academic, find very interesting. And I think, those things have to also be brought into the equation.
I do believe that, like many things in life, I think racism is self-perpetuating, and sometimes there are good actors and there are bad actors. There are good people who want to perpetuate it for their own self-interest. There are some people who are fighting it and feel the need politically to perpetuate it. And I just really, truly want to understand, for this specific show, and we're going to cover other issues on other shows, is this, listen, I am white and I have had privilege. Is that a bad thing? Should I feel guilty about it? I don't know. Should I?
Well, I think there's also an element of Nobel oblige, as we call it in Britain, which
Nobel
is
oblige, whatever that is. Like, is that menage?
Yeah.
Is that menage oblige or whatever is the singer?
No, it's not really. It just means that basically, if you have had privilege, you also, with that comes greater responsibility. And people who have privilege, it's incumbent upon them to act in a way which is above the normal standard, really, which comes back to the situation that we were talking about before with the Duchess of Sussex, who had apparently been asked by a member of the royal family, what color skin will your son be? And of course, that is not only indecent to ask, it's also supremely racist. And I think it's indicative of that institutional racism that underlies a lot of things, both in America and in Britain, and certainly in other parts of the world as well.
Here's the reality is, let me just say this. Yes, if you have privilege, you have a responsibility. But the thing with white privilege, a lot of people don't know that they have that privilege, right? So if they don't understand they have that privilege, then how can they know that they have to respect it and act a certain way? So the key thing is helping people understand that they have that privilege. And then once they understand they have that privilege, then they can take action. Asking a practical question like, honestly, what color is your child when he is born, to me is not racism. That's a practical question. I mean, so anyway, so once again, this shows why, to me, this specific episode is important, because there's so many facets of racism that drive me absolutely crazy, that need to be explored.
But I think actually on that, Dane, apologies for interrupting you. First of all, it is hurtful to the individual, i.e. Meghan Markle. So there's a lack of empathy, which is telling in this particular case. But also the fact that they even asked the question. It is completely irrelevant what color skin that child has. You are not only surrendering to racism, you're peddling a racist line, which is, I mean, it's straight up racism, because the issue here.
Caring about the color of the kid is racism?
Yes, it is.
This is one of the problems in our country and our world, is that we have lost the ability. Any conversation that begins, in the most part, is then labeled racist, not racist, sexist, not sexist. The conversations are just so, you can't even have them anymore. And that's once again why this story, not just from you and I, two white people having this conversation, this is why part of this is that I want to include people, real people, people who live this. Yeah. Listen, I am, once again, I keep going back. I'm white. I've had some privilege. And I'm a male. I can't sit here and say that I can, I understand what women go through. I can't sit here and say I know what black people go through, or Asian people go through, or Indian people go through. I can't understand what Meghan Markle goes through. I can't understand what rich people go through. I can't understand what really poor people. I can't understand these because I can only relate to the universe around me and my personal experiences. Right?
Yes, but then you can get what I think Sigmund Freud once says: empathy is the ability to step into somebody else's shoes and then step out again. And I think whenever we're dealing with any issue, we have to have that ability to step into other people's shoes.
Are you saying I'm not empathetic? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think you actually were empathetic just before because you were willing to go out and listen to people. That's why it's important that we go out and we ask people and say, well, how does it feel for you? For me, from the outside, I will not be able to understand totally empathetically because I'm not that person, but I can try to put myself into their shoes. And I think a lot of this racism comes from the fact that a lot of white privileged people think that they have the right to do that. I mean, sometimes we criticize this sort of rights mentality. I have the right to do this. I have a right to do that. Well, you only have a right to do things that do not impact other people negatively. And you do impact other people negatively by asking that sort of question.
These are the issues that we must address and we must talk on. And if we as a team here can do anything working with people that we know, because we do have unbelievable experience around the world. And I do think that that's, talk about empathy. I think it's also a responsibility that we have. People who have the ability to get the word out and start the conversation. And this is about, to me, the show is about starting the conversation, not ending the conversation. And that's what I want us to do with this show.
What I'm interested in this series is this sort of polarization that we have had, where politics has moved away from policy. We have a saying here in Britain, build a bridge and get over it. And whenever people are complaining about things, and I think I would actually like to build a bridge and get over it and see if I can actually talk to the people on the other side.
I think it's a good place to end. Dane, Professor, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for watching this, and thank you for considering to donate to this project. With your help, we hope to begin filming this summer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.